Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the Albion Surgery's Mental Health Awareness webinar, hosted by me, Dr. Emma Adjicum, a GP at the Albion Surgery. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected us all in so many ways. In addition to physical illness, it's contributed to mental ill health as we've faced social isolation and loneliness, worries over our health and the health of loved ones, strains on relationships, concerns about job security, housing and finances, and much, much more. The team at the Albion Surgery have noticed a significant rise in consultations about mental ill health and felt compelled to hold this event. We are aware of what you're experiencing and you are not alone. In addition to being able to seek help from staff at the surgery, we hope that this webinar will empower you with the information and resources that will enrich your wellbeing. This is our first ever webinar, so please bear with us if there are any teething problems. I'd like to encourage you all to use the chat box for any questions that you may have for our presenters. We'll do our best to answer them towards the end of the evening. I'd also be really grateful if you'd please use the chat box to give us feedback on this event. What went well, what could be improved, and which topics you feel it's important to cover in any future webinars. We'll post the webinar on the Albion Surgery website for anyone who's missed it or would like to rewatch it. So I'd like to stress that audience members are not visible, nor are they audible. We are delighted to have with us Laura Burke of Mind Bexley and Alex Fordham of Community Connect. Laura will be speaking about the management of stress, anxiety and depression, and Alex will be explaining the role of Community Connect and the organisations they signpost to for help with problems such as mental ill health, bereavement, carer support, social isolation and debt management. Now, our first speaker will be a familiar face to many of you. Dr. Samina Shah is a fellow GP at the Albion Surgery and our mental health lead. She'll discuss some of the physical and psychological symptoms of anxiety and depression. So I'll hand over to her now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I hope you'll soon be able to see my slides. As Dr. Adjicum said, if there are any teething problems, if you can't hear me, see me, or see the slides, please do post in the chat and somebody will help out. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm just going to start very briefly with just an overview of some of the symptoms of anxiety and depression. And these may be some things that we already know that seem quite obvious to us, but perhaps some things are a little bit less obvious and that we may not expect. So we'll talk about depression, anxiety and panic attacks, but there can be an overlap between them. And we know that your mental health has an effect on your physical health. So we'll talk about how these can have a physical effect on your body. If we start first, we're talking a little bit about depression. So the psychological symptoms of depression, and that means how does it make you feel? What does it feel like when you have depression? And these are listed just some of the symptoms that you can feel. So you can feel low and down. You may feel tearful. You may feel quite irritable. You may feel that things that normally you would be fine with really irritate you now. You may feel agitated and restless. Might find it difficult to concentrate. You might find that your memory's not as good and you're forgetful. That can have an impact on you, for example, at work, or in your relationships as well. You may find that you don't enjoy things that you'd normally enjoy, you don't enjoy anymore. You don't have motivation. You may avoid people or social events, and you may just feel that there isn't any hope, that there's nothing to look forward to. And these are now some of the physical ways in which depression can affect you. So you can feel quite low in energy, very tired, fatigued. It can affect your sleep, it can disturb your sleep, and that's something that we've seen a lot of in the last year since lockdown. We've seen a lot of us have had our sleep affected. It can affect your appetite. So they say it can reduce your appetite, but sometimes we do find for some people it can actually increase your appetite. You know, we've all heard about comfort eating, and I'm sure that a few of us have done that in lockdown. It can cause aches and pains, which may be one of the things that you don't expect. It can affect periods, it can affect your libido and your sex drive. It can slow things down. so things feel very sluggish and slow. So if that affects your bowels, that can cause constipation, and it can affect even your movement and speech, as I said, just where everything just slows down and everything just becomes a bit more of an effort and that bit more difficult. We move on to talk about anxiety. There's an overlap between these. So there's an overlap between anxiety and depression. So some of the symptoms are the same. Some are a little bit different. Some are quite specific to anxiety, and some people will have both. So we often find people have a little bit of depression and a bit of anxiety together. They do go hand in hand. So the psychological symptoms of anxiety and how that makes you feel. Well, it makes you anxious. It makes you worry. It makes you worry about things that you perhaps wouldn't normally worry about. And then you worry about the fact that you're worrying. You can have a sense of dread, sense of doom. You can feel stressed and anxious a lot of the time, have difficulty concentrating, which again can have an impact on you at work and in your relationships. Now, the physical symptoms of anxiety. Now, there are quite a lot of these. One of the ways that I often describe it is, if you imagine when you're stressed and anxious, your body's releasing adrenaline and other chemicals and hormones, and those then have a physical effect on your body. So you may get some or all of these symptoms, and it's important to note that these are real physical symptoms. They're not in your head. So if they're caused by anxiety, you're not imagining it. Anxiety can have a real physical impact on you and on your body. So it can cause things such as palpitations, which means that you can feel your heart thumping or pounding or racing. You can feel sick, sweaty. You may get diarrhea, you may get tummy pains or may feel like a churning stomach. You can get pins and needles. You may get headaches, muscle aches and pains. And we often talk about tension headaches, which is when if you carry a lot of tension, particularly in your neck, then if you imagine the muscles tensing up and that then affecting the muscles going up into your head, and then that can cause headaches. It can disturb sleep, again, like we said, depression can do. Another thing that can happen in your sleep is you might find that you're grinding your teeth. That can be quite a common thing. And then just moving on a little bit from anxiety, just what some people with anxiety can get is panic attacks, which you may have heard about and some of you may have experienced them. Panic attacks are quite scary. They're really unpleasant. And they can come on quite suddenly, and they feel like a sudden wave where you can get some of these symptoms, where you can feel, again, your heart racing, sweating, sick, shaky. You may get chest pains, you may feel short of breath, you may feel that you're going to faint or pass out, or in severe cases some people feel that they're having a heart attack or something really awful is going to happen to them. And I always say with panic attacks it has a snowball effect, because when it happens and it's so horrible, that makes you feel more anxious because it was so unpleasant, and then you worry that it might happen again. That increases your anxiety. That makes it more likely to happen, and then you can see how things snowball and the panic attacks could then become a cycle. And the aim of any treatment would be to try and break that cycle. And before I hand back to Dr. Adjicom and we hear about what support is available for you, I will just mention that I know we haven't talked about medication, and I think people probably expect doctors to talk about that. But what we really wanted to focus on tonight was the support that's available for you in the community, what is there. But if you did have any questions about medication, if you did want to ask anything, please put the questions in the chat, and when we have the question and answer session at the end, we will answer those. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand back to Dr. Adjicom now.
Hi Emma, I think you're on mute. So if you could unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Shah. Our next speaker is Laura Burke, Community Engagement Worker at Mind Bexley. Thank you, Laura.
Hello everyone, it's really nice to be here today. Firstly, I just want to check that my screen is available, Someone just give me a nod to let me know the screen's here. Emma, yeah, excellent. Thank you. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is the management of depression and anxiety. There are lots of things that I'm going to talk about within this section. And what I want to just suggest, what I want to say is that a lot of us experience depression and anxiety in different ways, and what might work for one might not work for another. So I don't want you to think I've got to do all of these things and they're going to help me. What I want you to do is try and have a think about what I suggest and what can help you going forward. So maybe it's about taking some notes and making your own emotional toolkit. So firstly, what we're going to talk about is talking to someone you trust. We always talk about this in mental health. We always talk about talk to those around you. We talk about time to talk, about asking twice. And the reason we say about talking to those around you is because it can be really nice sometimes to get it out how you're feeling. You know, often when we're experiencing depression or anxiety, we're feeling very overwhelmed. We are feeling out of control at times. And speaking to those around us can make us feel quite grounded. And also, when we do speak to people around us, it can actually give us a different perspective. So if I was, for instance, really anxious about this presentation today, and I was getting in my own head and I was saying to myself, I'm not going to be able to do it, I'm not going to be good enough, etc. Me talking to somebody around me would give me a different perspective. Someone might say to me, you know what you're doing, you've done presentations before. Someone might say to me, if you make a mistake, it isn't the end of the world. And it can be really lovely sometimes to get that perspective. There are times where people don't have people that they can talk to, or they say that they don't want to put it on them. I hear that quite a lot in mental health. Well, at the end of this section, what I will do is share some resources for you and places where you can go to talk to people. So talk to somebody you trust. Next, what I wanted to talk about is mindfulness. I think mindfulness has become a bit of a buzzword at the moment, and we talk about it a lot in mental health. And basically what mindfulness means is being in the moment. It's about being in the here and now. Lots of us, when we're feeling quite anxious, we're feeling quite worried about the future. And at times when we're feeling quite depressed, sometimes we're looking at the past. So when we are mindful, when we are in the moment, it can really ground us and make us just think about right now. So right now, I'm talking to you, I can hear myself speaking, I can hear little things going on around me, but I'm in the moment. And there is lots of research to say that when we are fully in the moment, it can really help us manage our depression. And alongside that, lots of people who practice mindfulness report that it does help their anxiety. Mindfulness does help you become more self-aware about how you're feeling, how your body is feeling, what your body is telling you. It can help you feel calmer and less stressed. It can help you feel more able to choose how to respond to your thoughts and feelings. Lots of us react quite quickly without taking that time to think about what we're going to say first. It can also help us cope with the difficult thoughts and feelings that we're experiencing, and it can also help us be kinder to ourselves. Mindfulness can be done in lots of different ways. There is lots of mindfulness videos on YouTube, and there's mindfulness apps. And I think a really good place to start would be guided mindfulness. So somebody talking you through that journey. There are some people that do say that they find that really difficult to just focus on the here and now and to be in the present moment. And it's about finding what's best for you. But it might be worthwhile having a look at a video and seeing what works for you. Another way you can practice mindfulness, some people find meditation quite difficult. However, there is another way that you can be in the here and now. So what I like to try is I play a little game, and this is called a grounding technique. So I might say to myself, okay, can I find 5 things in the room that are red? Can I see 2 things that are blue? And by doing this, what you tend to find is it really distracts you from how you're thinking and feeling, and it really gets you into the moment. So that's something to take away today as well. Next, we've also got looking after your physical health. We know that when we look after our physical health, that can have a real impact on our mental health. When we exercise, we release brain chemicals called endorphins, which are basically good chemicals that make you feel good. So what we have to do, we have to exercise a little bit, sweat a little bit, and then we start to feel a bit better. And I think it's really easy for me to say, okay, look after your physical health, go and do some exercise. But actually, when we are feeling depressed or anxious, sometimes it's the last thing we want to do. So what it is about sometimes is setting yourself small, achievable goals. So when I meet people at Mind, people say to me, well, I can't exercise. I don't want to get out of bed. And maybe it's about saying, I'm going to go walking at the end of the road, or I'm going to jog on the spot for 5 minutes. There are small things that we can do to look after our physical health. Experiencing anxiety or depression can make it hard to find the energy to look after yourself, but taking steps to look after your physical health can make a difference. We talk a lot about behavioural activation within mental health, and basically what that means is doing the things that make us feel good anyway, regardless of how we feel. So if I give you an example, when I feel good, I will go to the gym. And when I go to the gym, guess what? I feel good. But when I don't feel good, I don't go to the gym. And then I'm sure lots of you are going to know this, I don't feel good. So what it's doing, we need to break the cycle. We need to find the things that are good for us, and we need to do them irrespective of how we're feeling in the moment. Try and get some good sleep. That's another tip. I think that's very easy to say as well, especially if you're really struggling with your sleep. Lots of adults, especially those who are anxious, do find it really difficult to get a good night's sleep. It might be you find it really hard to get to sleep, or it might be that when you get to sleep, you're not really restful sleep and you're waking up in between. I will talk to you a little bit later about ways you can look after your sleep patterns and ways you can get yourself into a good routine. And what I've really noticed is with lots of people who do struggle with sleep is that they don't give themselves enough time to get to sleep. We all have very hectic lives. Lots of us are stressed, lots of us are worrying. And then it comes to a time that we want to go to sleep and we expect ourselves to go to sleep immediately. But we haven't got ourselves into that state of mind yet. You know, we're still thinking about what we've got to do tomorrow, we're thinking about doing the kids' packed lunches, or we're thinking about what's going on at work. And we've not given ourselves the time to calm down from the day. So it's really important that you establish a routine and you get yourself into a calmer state. So that might be something like reading, or that might be having a bath every night, or that might be going for a walk. There might be something that you can do within your routine that might make a change. You know, if you've got children, you know, we all have bed routines for children, and equally adults need the same. We all need a bit of a routine at times. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Next is thinking about your diet. You know, we know that if we are having really fatty foods, or if we're having high amounts of sugar or caffeine, this can have a real impact on our mental health. For instance, caffeine, if you are somebody that's quite anxious anyway and you're feeling physical symptoms of anxiety, what you might notice is caffeine will exacerbate the symptoms. Not everyone. I've done lots of these talks, and some parents have said, and other people I've spoke to, that they can drink lots of coffee and feel absolutely fine, whereas others might have one and they might get quite shaky. So it is dependent on the person. So it's being mindful of the fact when we're talking about diet to establish a good, healthy diet for you. You know, if we've got very busy lives, take a banana in your bag, set yourself a food diary, try and take care of yourself. And taking care of your personal hygiene, we know when we look after ourselves, that can make us feel good. And also try to avoid recreational drugs or alcohol. As we know, what goes up must go down, and drugs and alcohol are a temporary measure that we use sometimes to feel better. But actual fact, what can happen is we could then have a dependency, or what could happen is it could exacerbate our feelings and we might feel more down. Can I just confirm that everyone can still hear me okay? My computer has done something a bit funny, but I just want to make sure you can hear me. Yeah?
Yes, Laura. Yes, Laura.
Excellent, thank you very much. Next one, try and keep active. You know, and I know that's easy to say when you are feeling quite unmotivated, but there are things that we can do to stay in control of our depression and what we're experiencing. So it could be that you might want to volunteer. We know that when we give to others, it makes us feel good. And it could be that you want to engage in a hobby. It might be that you want to join a group. And I will talk about lots of groups that we've got going on at Minds that you can access online that might be really helpful for you right now if you are struggling with your mental health. Next is identify your mood triggers. There are lots of us that get into a particular mood and we don't really understand why. We don't know why we've woken up and we get in a bad mood, or we don't know why the day started well and then it hasn't ended well. And what I found really works is keeping a mood diary. Try to keep a track of where your mood is. You might find that in the mornings you are, say, a 7 out of 10, and then by lunchtime you dip. And then by the evening you've dipped dramatically. And what it's recognizing is what is going on in that day that is making you dip. And maybe what needs to be done is you need some coping strategies in that middle of the day. It might be that work can be quite hard, so it might be you might need to do a breathing exercise or talk to someone, or it might be you could go for a short walk. It can be really helpful to identify sometimes what exactly is going on, because we are all racing sometimes and we don't ever check in with ourselves. We talk about this a lot in mental health. We do a check-in. How are you doing? How are you feeling? What's going on for me right now? Sometimes when we feel anxious, what exactly are we anxious about? Can we change it right now? Is there anything I can do to make myself feel better? There are things as we go that can support us along the way. So identifying mood triggers can be really helpful. You tend to find as well that some of our moods do go up and down, and that's completely normal. You know, we all fluctuate. We're all in a continuum. We might find at times that we have really good mental health, and we might find at times that we have not so good mental health. And when we don't have good mental health, it might mean that the things we are doing to look after ourselves, we might need to do a little bit more of, or we might need a few more coping strategies. If I talk to you briefly about something called the stress container. Right now, if you think about a container, and there is stress coming into the container all of the time. And at the bottom of the container, there are taps. And our taps are our coping strategies. So for instance, your coping strategy might be going for a walk. Your coping strategy might be talking to a friend. And the amount of taps you have depends on the less stress you have. So if I've got money worries, family worries, work worries, but then I talk to people, then I go for a walk, then I write in a journal, all of these things are going to reduce my stress levels. So what I'm saying to you is, what taps do you have right now? What are the things that you can do to release your stress? There are things right now, especially due to lockdown and COVID, where a lot of our taps, a lot of our coping strategies, we aren't able to do. You know, some people had said they might go and see their friends, or there might be groups you would have gone to. And unfortunately, we can't do that right now. But what can we do? There are things that we can do and we are in control of. So it's just about thinking today, when I go through these, what are your taps and what can you start to implement going forward to look after your mental health? Next, this is a really big one, learning to accept yourself. We are very hard on ourselves. We can be very critical, and lots of the thoughts and feelings we have about ourselves, we wouldn't dream of having about anyone else. But yet we can be so self-critical because nobody hears it usually. We're not really forthcoming with that information. So one of the most important steps in maintaining mental well-being is to learn to accept yourself. If you value yourself, you are more likely to have positive relations with other people and find it easier to cope with difficult times in your life. So that's an interesting thought, isn't it? So if we are positive, we seem to have better relationships and people seem to be more positive around us, that means actually that there's a lot of change and there's a lot of things that we are in control of. So there are many things that we can do to increase our own self-esteem and increase how we feel about ourselves. So number one, try not to compare yourselves to other people. I think when we compare ourselves to others, all that happens is we always come out unfavorably, we always come out jealous, or we might feel shame, or we might feel guilt, and it doesn't really help our mental health at all. If lots of you on social media, Instagram, for instance, if you're spending time scrolling and you're thinking, well, how are they in Dubai on holiday? Oh, sorry, I'm just jealous. Why are they in Dubai? Why can people afford this? Why can people do this? All that happens is we feel it. So sometimes it's about knowing when to step away. Next, acknowledge your positive qualities and the things that you are good at. I tend to find that lots of people aren't really good at this. They tend to really struggle when I say, tell me something good about you. But actually, we are all human. We all have different qualities. And that's what's great about us. We're not boring. We're not robots. We all have things that we are good at. And that's great because we're all different and we learn from each other. So have a think about what means to you. What are you good at? What are your positive qualities? Can you cook? Can you knit? Are you good at basketball? What is it that's good for you, or what are you proud of yourself for? Next one, I think this is a really, really important one. And I think that if you are really capable to identify and challenge your unhelpful thinking patterns, you will be in a really good space. So learn to identify and challenge your unhelpful thoughts. we have something like 70,000 thoughts in a day. Lots of them are curious, lots of them make no sense. Sometimes they're really good, and sometimes they're really negative and really hard, and they can be really difficult to cope with when we're constantly having that negative brain pattern all of the time. It can feel really draining. So what I would like you to try and do is learn to challenge these unhelpful thinking patterns. And ways you can do this is identifying a negative thought and thinking about a different perspective. So an example, if I made a mistake in this presentation today and I called myself an idiot, if I said to myself, I'm an idiot, then I could think to myself, well, no, Laura, you're not an idiot because you did everything else okay, or because you're doing well in other areas, or because of X, Y, and Z. So what I want you to do is challenge that. If you find that quite difficult, if you find it quite hard to challenge your negative thoughts, then try and bring people in. Think about, what would a loved one say to me? What would someone that cares about me say about this? Or ask them, you know, I felt really sad about this. I made a mistake in a presentation. I feel a bit of an idiot. I called myself an idiot. And wait to see what they say, because these thoughts turn into feelings. And what we don't want is these negative thoughts start to fester and become really negative feelings about yourself, which doesn't make you feel good at all. Next, and the way you can do this, the way you can challenge your unhelpful thinking patterns, as I said, write them down and challenge them, but also use self-help books. You know, self-help books and websites can help challenge your beliefs. You know, there are lots of books out there. We'll talk about some later. And websites. Some people might look at quotes. Some people might look at something called the Good News Network, which just focuses on good news, which I think a lot of us need at the moment. And there are lots of positive things that we can bring to us, and maybe shutting yourself away from negativity. The news, for instance, if you don't have to watch the news, so maybe it might be good to turn it off. Next, spend time with supportive people. If you're feeling quite negative about yourself, you need to be around people that pick you up, right? We need to be around others that are supportive, and that's going to help you move forward. It's also being assertive, you know, not being around people who aren't treating you with respect, and then also engaging in things that you enjoy. I think what happens when we become adults, we become too serious. We worry about work, we worry about family, money problems, etc. And we forget what it's like to be us. We forget the fun, we forget the importance of our hobbies and enjoyment. When I do these talks in schools, and lots of parents say to me that I used to love painting and I don't do that anymore. And then when they go back to it, they feel amazing because they're doing something for them. So that's something to keep in mind. What is it that you can do for you going forward? Next one, take time to relax. It's really important to make time for yourself and relax. Self-care and looking after yourself is not selfish, it's actually essential. What you don't want is to kind of burn yourself at both ends. You know, saying you need 5 minutes or taking some time out or planning in your self-care is a really good idea to make sure you're getting that in. It might not be you can do it every day. It might be a few times a week. It might be once a week, but it's something just for you where you can relax. That might be having a bath. That might be yoga. Might be reading. Might even be calling someone. You might find that relaxing. Whatever it is for you, just try and do something for yourself. It's not selfish to look after you. So next, I wanted to talk to you about some self-help that we've got as well. There's lots of self-help resources online, and we've got lots of on our Mind of Bexley website as well. National Mind offer lots of resources on lots of different mental health problems. That's a really good hub, I would say. But I wanted to mention a few things here. So number one, sleep. We know that lots of adults struggle with sleep and find it really difficult to get to sleep. And there is support out there. There are things that you can do going forward. National Mind have got a good resource about how to cope with sleeping problems. And what I'm going to do after this as well, I've got a self-help list that we can send out to you as well. There are also lots of sleep apps which are really good to help you get to sleep. It might be there's a meditation. I actually find listening to logs burning really, really relaxing. Some people listen to whale noises, some people listen to water. I find logs burning really relaxing. So it's finding what works for you. There's also lots of sleep stories where people record themselves reading a story. It can be really relaxing because you're focusing on the story and you're slowly getting into a deeper sleep. Lots more resources on our Mind of Bexley website, as I said. Next, I'll move on to anxiety. There's resources on our Mind website. There's also a resource called Mood Juice, which can be really good, self-help guide, and it goes through lots of ways to break down your thoughts and how they impact your feelings. There is a really good app that I've come across, which is called What's Up, and it's got like a hand icon around a pink circle. And this is a fantastic app for anxiety. It's got lots of grounding techniques. It's got quotes on there. It's got a diary. You can write a little diary entry on there. If you're in crisis, it says help, and there's lots of things you can do to get yourself into a calmer state. Really, really good app, but I will send that round for you. Qigong as well. There is lots of evidence to say that Qigong, which is a relaxing way to exercise, can be really stress relieving. It is something we also provide as part of our course in the Recovery College, so that might be something that you would like to try. And then we've also got depression. There's lots of self-help for depression. There's action for our happiness pack. There's lots of resources on challenging unhelpful thoughts and how exactly you can break that down. On the Get Self-Help page, there is CPT self-help in particular, which can be really supporting. And also, we know that looking after your physical health can really impact your mental health, so I've added that there as well. I've also added on the reading list a list of self-help books. In particular, one that I would really recommend is something called The Chimp Paradox. It really looks at your thoughts and how your thoughts are really overriding each other. So sometimes it's like you've got a negative thought and it's like another self which is kind of fighting all the time. It's a really good book. It's by Steve Rogers, Professor Steve Rogers. There's a list of apps to help improve your well-being. I find the Calm app is really good. Headspace is really helpful. It looks at lots of meditation. There are lots of apps out there, and it's just about finding what's right for you, because what's right for one might not be right for another. There's lots of well-being audio guides on the NHS website as well, which are really good, that go through anxiety and depression, and lots of other resources on there that can be really helpful. Mindfulness, I've said, can be of use. So there's a Mindspace app as well, and they offer lots of different meditation too. So I will send out that reading list so you've got it step by step. But there might be something you can recommend that you can add to the questions and answers box, and then perhaps we can share later. So now what I want to do for the rest of the presentation is just go into our Mind and Bexley services. So for any of you who don't really know much about Mind, so Mind and Bexley is a mental health charity, and we support individuals 18 and over who are struggling with their mental health. And we also support their families, the carers also. So what I'm going to do now is just go through our services in a little bit more detail. So first we have something called IAPT, which is called our talking therapy service. And this is where somebody could get counselling, cognitive behavioural therapy, or online therapy. So this is for individuals 18 and over who's registered with Bexley GP, who's struggling with mild to moderate anxiety or depression. And what I mean by that, mild to moderate, that is individuals who are worrying often, they're feeling low often, and they know they need support. They don't feel like themselves. You can come and speak to us. We will, as I said, we offer counselling. Cognitive behavioural therapy looks into your thought patterns and how your thoughts impact your behaviour, and maybe in changing your thoughts that can really impact your behaviour and how you feel. We also have online therapy as well. We recognise that not everyone wants a therapist. Some people want to work through a workbook at their own pace and do it independently, and that's absolutely fine. So we offer that too. We also support individuals who've got long-term health conditions, diabetes, IBS, etc. And we also support people who are parents and looking after children in the perinatal period, and parents of babies under 1 year. And we also offer support for people who've gone through trauma and bereavement. So we offer a lot of support, and we support a lot of people within the IAPT team, and we can support you as well. It might be that when you come into our service, you might have support from a therapist and you're working through our online platform. Sometimes you can have a bit of a blended approach with Mind as well. So in terms of self-referring, you can self-refer on our website. So all you would do is complete our self-referral form. And then what happens is our admin team will give you a call and book in a first assessment with you. So that will be an assessment with one of our therapists, where they will speak to you for about half an hour, and they'll kind of find out a lot about you, what's going on, where you want to be, and decide whether we're the best service for you or another service. If it's another service, they will signpost you to another service and support you as best as they can. So that's the IAPT service in a whole. You can also get a referral from your GP, so it doesn't matter which one. I often get questions saying, if I go to the GP, does that mean the referral will be faster or anything like that, or does that hold more scope? The referral is exactly the same process. It's received at the same time, so it doesn't matter which one you do. It's entirely up to you. I would say, in a way, a self-referral, I guess, would be helpful in a way if your GP appointment is not till the week after and you would really like to get on board now. But it's entirely up to you. It doesn't make any difference to us. Next, we've got our Recovery College. So this is for individuals who are struggling with any mental health problem or who's experiencing mental health, and perhaps they need more support with that or want to learn more about it. So we offer befriending. So we actually offer, we have a group of volunteers that will call people once a week, and they will offer support calls for them. We also do weekly check-in calls, as I said, mentoring. And we also have a digital timetable where we support individuals and offer an array of courses to improve their well-being. So I'm just going to show you that now so you can have an understanding. Hopefully that picture's clear. But as you can see, we offer things like women's group, guided mindfulness, well-being workshops, preparing to return to work, positivity, stress and anxiety, parental support. As you can see, the wellbeing workshops on the side, understanding anxiety, understanding depression, understanding panic attacks. There is lots of support you can get from these workshops, and I would really recommend going on them. And they're all via Zoom. You just register on our website via the link on there under the Recovery College. And all you do is go onto the Zooms, and you will have a facilitator who will deliver a workshop like I'm doing now. And you can turn your camera off if you don't want to participate, that's fine. But I think what you're going to get is you're going to get lots of coping strategies, and you're going to get lots of ways to manage moving forward. We've also got a wellbeing line, so we recognise that lots of people, obviously we're at home a lot more, and we need to make sure that we are supporting you as best as we can. So we have got a wellbeing line that you can call us on, which is open Monday to Friday 10 to 3. And we will speak to you about whatever you want to speak about. You know, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're stressed, you need some support, we are there for you. We will talk, we will listen, we will offer you the support you need, and we will refer you into our services or other services. Next, we've also got a crisis care. So this is our drop-in support service. So if anybody in the borough is really struggling in their mental health and needs to speak to someone right away, you can come and see us at our crisis cab in the evenings. So we are open Monday to Sunday, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Regardless of lockdown, regardless of COVID, we are open. We've not closed once during this whole pandemic, and we don't intend to close. We recognise that we need to be there for Bexley residents. So if you are needed to speak to someone, please come and see us. We really want to make sure that we are supporting you. We will offer you that support and then refer you into services. So you don't just have support that evening, you have support going forward. So that is that service there. You don't need an appointment, you just turn up at our office and you'll be supported. I know it says CAF, it's a bit misleading, it's not a CAF, it's just our office. I think it's because you used to get tea and coffee, but unfortunately I don't think you're going to get that. I am sorry. But you are going to get the support you need. So yeah, there is some glimmer of hope. Right, next. There's also carer service, like I alluded to. So we don't just support individuals struggling with their mental health, we also support the families, the friends, the neighbours who are supporting them, because we recognise that individuals who are experiencing mental health, they need support, but equally so does people people around them, because they don't understand what's going on sometimes and they need emotional support too. So we offer that. There is more information on the website too. Lastly, we're nearly there, guys. I'm sorry, I'm nearly out of time. We've also got a community pantry as well. I just wanted to add that if there is anyone on this webinar today who is struggling financially and does need help with their food, we have got a community pantry right next door to our office. Basically, for a contribution of £4, individuals will be able to choose from a variety of fresh and tinned foods worth up to £20. So basically what we're trying to do is make sure you've got more money in your pocket. We understand it's quite a difficult time right now, so want to make sure that financially we're doing all we can. And we have also got complimentary food as well. So if anyone was struggling and they didn't have the £4, that isn't a problem either. So I just wanted to add that today. Lastly, if you are experiencing mental health and you want someone to talk to, maybe the wellbeing line's closed, maybe the crisis cafe is closed, you can call Samaritans. It's a 24-hour line. They're really lovely. They will listen to you and support you and give you the support you need. If you forget everything today about mine, that's not a problem, because GPs will know, and these lovely ladies will be able to support you into our services. So do visit your GP if you need support. And lastly, Bexley do have an urgent advice line. So if you are feeling very overwhelmed and perhaps you are worried about somebody else, you can always call the urgent advice line in Bexley. It's a 24-hour service and they will do their utmost best to support you. It's been really, really lovely to come here, and thank you very much for listening.
Many thanks. We're already getting so much, but that was helpful, so thank you. And I personally didn't have any clue about the range of resources and activities that we provide, particularly as part of the Recovery College. So your talk is going to prove really helpful to me when I'm counselling my patients. Thank you. Thank you. I'd now like to hand over to Alex Fordham, who is from Community Connect, and she's a Community Connect volunteer coordinator. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Emma. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yeah, we can.
Is that better?
Yes, I can see your screen, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. It won't let me do this. Sorry about that, guys. Here we go. So sorry about that. My name's Alex. I am from Community Connect in Bexley. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about our service and help you access the right support when you need it. So you've obviously heard from lots of people today about lots of amazing things that are available in the borough, but hopefully we'll be able to give you a little bit more insight as well. So many of us have struggled during lockdown, and it's presented a lot of new challenges. And as the months have gone on, people have been able to cope less and less, and just feeling the level of stress has really taken a toll on our mental health. So like everybody else that's here today, we appreciate that and we recognise it, and we want to support you as best as we can. We're facing lots of different issues at the moment. Just generally feeling overwhelmed, maybe feeling more isolated, more lonely, struggling with our mental health, struggling to deal with our weight potentially. Laura spoke about getting outside and doing more exercise and how sometimes that can feel quite difficult. So we appreciate that there's lots of things going on for each person, and we try to listen to you and realise that, you know, if you've got an existing mental health issue already, these things are going to affect us even more. And if you don't have an existing mental health issue, it can still take a real toll on how you're feeling. So we're here to listen. So we're a free local service that you can access, and we try to help you access the right support when you need it most. We're for 18 years and over, and as long as you're registered to a Bexley GP. So there's many charities and groups out there that can help you get through some difficult times, and we try to connect you to them. So like we said before, we can connect you with, we can help you with debt and money advice, stress and anxiety, substance or alcohol dependency. You might be managing a new health condition or have recently been diagnosed with a condition and struggling to cope with that. You may also be suffering from domestic abuse, bereavement, or just generally feeling lonely and isolated. So just to reiterate that those who can access us at Community Connect, they must be registered to a Bexley GP, and you have to be over 18 years old. So just to tell you a little bit more about what our support looks like, once we've received your referral, and I'll explain at the end how you can go about doing that, we will get back to you within 7 working days of receiving it, and then we'll arrange to talk to you about what's really important to you, discuss what's been going on, what's kind of led you to have the referral, and see about what kind of groups or organisations are around that might be able to provide some support for you. So as well as kind of telling you about that, we can also do the referral for you so that you don't have to. And once we've done that referral or given you the information, we'll then check in with you a few weeks later just to see how you're doing, to see how you've got on with those suggestions. And you can always call us in the meantime, and we might be able to provide you with more support, or if you want to find out any other information. So we can refer you to lots of different organisations, but these are some of the kind of activities that you might be signposted to. So a lot of them have kind of changed or adapted their offers for during COVID-19, but some of them are starting to get back up and running, and we're the best people to go to find out what's going on at the moment around you and what's really going to help you. So some examples are music groups, gardening groups, talking therapies, that might be counselling, also lots of different outdoors kind of things. So we've got walking, cycling, social groups, volunteering as well. And all of these things kind of get you back out into the community, get you more connected, and hopefully improve your health and well-being. And these are just a few examples of the amazing organisations which already exist in Bexley. So we hope that we're the organisation that can best signpost you to the organisation that's really going to help you. So there's so many organisations available, one of which here is Mind in Bexley. So we've had Laura speaking to us today. So it might be that Mind in Bexley is right for you, in which case we'll tell you about that and help do the referral for you. It also could be that Counselling Matters is right for you, so they do low cost counselling. Reinstate, they're an employment charity that help you get back into employment. Bexley Women's Aid, of course, supporting women. We have Bexley MenCap, so they support adults with learning disabilities, and they've been running events via Zoom, health-based groups, social groups, BATS, which is Bexley Accessible Transport Scheme. So they provide transport for those who need it around the borough, and they've been helping people to get food delivered and get out and about during COVID-19. So now I've just got a few examples of the kind of work that we do at Community Connect and maybe how it could potentially help you. So this is an example of Gurpreet, and she was struggling to come to terms with the illness and the way it was affecting her life. So she was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and she also had anxiety and depression. She was really struggling to cope and started having nightmares about her pains and started to isolate herself. Her younger children as well were also starting to notice the change, and she went to her GP, and her GP referred her to Community Connect. And as a result, we were able to refer her to Mind in Bexley's therapy groups. And the more that she started going to this, her confidence started to build. And then we also referred her to Healthy Walks. So she was getting out more, meeting new people, and like Laura mentioned as well, those endorphins were going. So, her mood started to improve. And we also connected her to fibromyalgia support groups. And like I said before, we then checked in with her again at 3 weeks, and after in 3 and 6 months, just to see how she's doing, see if her well-being has improved and whether she's happy with the services that we suggested to her, which she was. And she also felt like she was making new friends and going forwards with her life. And this is an example of Thomas, and he wasn't sure where to turn to get help for his 2 sons. So his sons had Down syndrome, and he noticed that the services that he was normally accessing had been reduced. He really just felt like he needed support, and he also needed help with form filling for their benefits. So again, the GP referred Thomas to us, and we were able to signpost him to refer him to Irish Community Services, and they helped him with form filling, and we also connected him to Evergreen for support for caring and for cleaning services. So they would have come to his house and help with kind of some of the day-to-day things that maybe he was struggling to cope with. Again, we checked in with Thomas after 3 weeks and then 3 to 6 months, and he was also really happy with the services and felt like he was just able to cope a little bit more. And like we have said throughout this webinar, just having somebody to talk to is really useful, and someone that you feel is on your side, and we hope that that's us. So this is just an example of some of the things, some of the ways that we've managed to support people. I think the important thing is that we appreciate that every service user has different needs and everybody's coming to us with a different background. So we really try to get to know you personally, independently, and really try to make the difference that's going to have the most impact on your life. So for one person, the thing that we do is not going to be the same for everybody, and it won't have the same effect. But just these are just a few things. So for example, some people have started going to lunch clubs, have started volunteering, have been referred to social care, have had telephone befriending, have had hearing aid repaired. That would be probably through Bexley Deaf Centre, or have had their blue badge approved. And so each person's going to react differently to the things that we do for them. But it might seem small to one person, but to another person could be life-changing. So if you would like to do a referral to Community Connect, or if you want to find out any more information about what it is that we offer, you can obviously speak to your GP, but we also encourage you to get in touch with us personally. So you've got all of our details here. So you can go online to communityconnectbexley.co.uk, and on there you'll be able to do a self-referral. You can also find out more about us on our webpage. Oh, I think I lost you there. Are you still there?
We're still here. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Alex.
Sorry, it just went. Am I still here? Yes, I am. Okay, sorry, my whole screen just went blank. And I was just going to say that if you aren't sure about how to do the referral online, then you can give us a call and we will talk you through how to do that over the phone. And thank you for listening.
Emma, you're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Alex. Community Connect have very kindly agreed to email a list of some of the organisations that they stay close to all audience members. So please do keep an eye on your junk mail folders. This will be sent along with a list of some of the self-help resources that Laura presented earlier in the meeting. Okay, I'd now like to open the floor for questions. So please do keep them coming in the chat box. In addition to our presenters, we also have Jatinder Rai, who's a manager at Community Connect, and she's been responding to some of the questions already regarding the voluntary sector. Okay. So the first question that I have, I'd really like to put to Dr. Shah and Laura, possibly. I'll just read out verbatim. So what advice would you give to those of us who struggle to explain to family members that it's not personal when we can't tap into conversations? It can just be exhausting, especially if it's around topics that we are uncomfortable about and we can't agree on. I just want to withdraw.
Would you like me to go first?
Yes, please, Laura.
Yeah, no problem. So it's a challenging one, isn't it? Because what I'm hearing is you feel a certain way and they feel another, and it's trying to get that sense of comfortableness where you are on the same page. I would always say it's about sitting down and saying, I understand that you want me to contribute, but sometimes I find it really difficult, and this is why. Another thing I would suggest, when there is communication issues and it does feel difficult to speak to people, is I would always say write a letter, or even a text. That can always be taken a lot differently, which can be really helpful. Apology, I know there's a bit of echo. I think you can hear me now. But yeah, so I would basically say it's just about explaining that you find that difficult. They might not understand that initially, but just explain that it's exhausting for you and you do just want to take a step back. Another thing I would suggest as well is, as I said, writing a letter. Sometimes when things are difficult to talk about, writing a letter and putting it on paper can be a lot easier for you, but then also greater for them to digest, and it gives them that time to take it in without feeling that they need to respond immediately. So yeah, I hope that helps.
I don't think I have much more to add to that, Laura. I think that was a really good answer, and I think the only thing that I would probably add to that is don't feel guilty about not having those conversations that you don't want to have. I think, as you say, I think you said that it can be really exhausting and people take it personally if I don't want to have those conversations. And I think this is where, we talk about prioritising your mental health, and that's a really good example of the sorts of things where it can feel like a bit of a dilemma, or it can actually feel difficult to do that. But you are absolutely right to put yourself first in that situation. And if you don't want to have those conversations, you don't have to. Don't feel guilted into doing it, and don't feel pressured into having conversations or discussing topics that you don't want to discuss.
Thank you both. Thank you. I think I'd really echo that, and also maybe add that it's important to try to encourage people to come from a place of understanding. So just sharing the knowledge that you have about depression or anxiety, maybe sharing this webinar rather, or any other resources with them, so that they'll have an understanding or an insight to what you're going through, will also probably help them in those discussions. So thank you for your question. Next question that we have, again, probably for Laura. The range of support for Mind or at Mind is great. What are the waiting times now on average for treatment rather than initial triage?
So it really does depend on the person and what type of treatment they are accessing. In terms of coming into the service, you will be seen by a therapist very, very quickly, within the first week at max. Sometimes people can get into groups quite quickly. We know lots of people get into groups within the first few weeks. However, it does depend on what people are experiencing. We know that individuals who are waiting for one-to-one therapy are going to wait considerably longer, because of obviously they are meeting somebody one-to-one. But what we can do while people are waiting is there are lots of other resources that they can access. So they can call our wellbeing line, or they can come to the crisis care, or they can access our online therapy while they're waiting for treatment. There are lots of things we are trying to do to ensure that even if individuals are on the waiting list, they are still supported.
Thank you, Laura. We've had a further question. Good evening, thank you for putting this webinar together. So thank you for your feedback. My question is, I've recently started sertraline 50 milligrams and have had 3 or 4 days of side effects. If my dosage is increased next month to 100 milligrams, will the side effects return? So, Dr. Shah, I don't know whether you want to answer that one.
Yes, and I mentioned that we'd answer any questions about medication if you had them. So yes, for most people, if you're going to get side effects when you start medication like sertraline, just like happened to you, you may have something for a few days and then it usually settles as your body gets used to the tablets and the medication. When you then increase the dose, most of the time you won't get those side effects again because your body's used to the medication, but there is a chance that it may happen again. Everybody's different, so everybody responds to medication slightly differently. So we'd say, look, there is a chance that it may happen again, but if it did, it would be the same as first time. It would just be for a few days, and then as your body got used to that higher dose, it would settle down.
Thank you. A further question. Hi, have you got an Irish community service group or any other ethnic minority group services? So that's probably
Yeah, that's for Community Connect. So yeah, we do have Irish. Oh, can you hear me? Okay. I'm not sure if everyone else heard that, but yeah, Irish Community Services, and we can help you access that. And if you come to us directly, then we'll be able to see what else is available at the time, because different offers do change. Jatinder, I'm not sure if you've got anything else to add about that.
Hi everyone, I'm Jatinder. It's nice to virtually meet everyone. So there are a few different organisations with who will offer support to specific ethnic minorities. If there was a specific one that you wanted to find out about, please let us know and we can try and connect you to them. A lot of organisations in Bexley are doing a lot more to be more diverse and inclusive. So there might not be a specific organisation, but there might be a specific service. So if you give us some more details, we can give you that information. Thank you.
Thanks.
Another question for Mind. Do patients need to be registered with a Bexley GP to access Mind services, or can they self-refer despite not being registered? So they live in the Bexley area, but they just aren't registered with a GP.
Okay, thank you for that. So in terms of the services I've been speaking about Mind and Bexley services. So if you are within a different area, you will need to check about your local Mind. Would someone mind putting themselves on mute? Because I know there's a lot of feedback I can hear. Excellent, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Emma. So in terms of being registered with a GP, you do need to be registered with a GP to get support from our IAP service, from our counselling service. So you would need to be registered. Obviously, with the Recovery College, you know, digital workshops, if you're living in the Bexley area, you can access them. So there are things that obviously you can access. The Crisis Cafe, you can come into the Crisis Cafe and see us in the evenings. It's just if you're getting any support and counselling, we just need to make sure you've got a GP, and that's because if there was any risk, we need to make sure that we refer to the GP. So that's why we need a GP.
Thank you very much, Laura. So next question is actually a testimonial as to how helpful the services at Mind can be and the transformative effect they can have. I've struggled in the past. I've had lots of support from Mind in the past, and I'm now in a much better place going forward. I've left my job so I can train for a new career. I would love to become a CBT counsellor so that I can help others who are struggling. Do you have any tips on how I can get into this career?
Oh, that's excellent. That's so lovely to hear. Thank you for sharing that. So there are lots of ways that you can get into working with us. We also do placements as well. So in terms of getting into training, I guess it's just looking into what kind of area you want to go down. Do you want to go into counselling? Do you want to go more into the therapy side of things? Do you want to practice CBT or counselling? If you look on the BACP, which is the British Counselling Association, I believe, that is a really good resource for you to look at, and it really breaks it down. I know that if you want to become a counsellor and to counsel, you will need to get kind of level 1, level 2 counselling skills. Then you go on to do a diploma in counselling, and that would mean you'd be registered as a therapist. But it just depends. It is, I think, a really rewarding thing to do, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. Thank everyone for your questions. Please keep them coming. Next question I have is, what support is available for people who are waiting for IAP sessions to start? So they may have been triaged and they're waiting for their sessions to start. What support is available to people who are told they're too severe for IAPT or Mind to treat long term, but not severe enough for Oxley's mental health team to take on?
Okay, so the first question was about what support is there while you're waiting for IAPT. So there is the online therapy that somebody can access and work through that workbook while they are waiting for treatment with a therapist. But what I would add, if you are waiting for treatment and something's changed, your presentation's changed, you feel that you're getting worse, you need to let us know. So say we did the assessment with you and we did that triage, but actually you don't feel like that anymore. Maybe you feel better, maybe you need to feel worse. We need to know where you're at. So if you're on that waiting list and you're thinking, I need to see someone, I'm really, really struggling, and it feels a lot different to how it first started, we would really urge you to get in touch, because we need to make sure that we know exactly where you're at and how we can support you going forward. Equally, there are all the other services. Come and see us in the evening. We're open every single evening, so you can come and see us. As I said, the wellbeing line, every day we are open. So we've got lots of other services within Mind that can support you. And the other part of the question, Emma, do you mind reading that out to me again? I'm so sorry. I think it was about if you were in between. It sounded like if you. Oh, sorry, you're on mute, Emma.
Just refine the question. I think it was if you're not well enough or deemed unwell enough for Oxley's, but you have got longer term problems and you've only been able to have short term treatment with Mind?
It is a really challenging one because within IAT, we do offer short-term therapy. And the reason that is because we are looking after people with mild to moderate anxiety or depression. So anyone who is more severe would need more longer-term care, and that's something that we couldn't provide. And an individual would do that. If there is somebody that's falling between the gap, there is meetings that Oxley's and Mind have regularly once a month to discuss cases like that. So if you feel that you are falling between the gap and you're not getting the right support you need, please do get in touch with us or Oxley's and we can see if we can help you further. Or even your GP could support you with that as well.
Thank you, Laura. I think, Jatinder, did you want to add something here?
Yes, please. Hi, everyone again. So there is also Quell, which is an online kind of therapy platform that you can access as well while you're waiting for IAT services. There is a mental health wellbeing line provided by Counselling Matters Bexley, which is open when the Mind line is shut. So you can get local support pretty much, I think it's up until 10 p.m. And then, of course, there's Samaritans as well, which is 24 hours. And then at Counselling Matters Bexley, they provide low-cost talking therapy. So it might not necessarily be free, but there are some circumstances in which it can be free. And a lot of their clients are patients who don't necessarily meet Mind criteria, but don't quite meet Oxley's criteria. So if you wanted to find out more and have a chat with us, just give us a call or fill in the referral form and we can talk that through with you. Thanks.
Thanks. Next question. I was offered a group from OCD with Mind, but I find Zoom calls really overwhelming and it makes my anxiety go through the roof. And I wondered, is there something else for people with OCD? I appreciate this is going to be challenging during lockdown, Laura.
Thank you very much for that question, because I think lots of people instantly do say that they don't want groups or they do find groups overwhelming. Please let us know this. What we tend to find is sometimes people go into groups and then they don't come or they stop going, and it's because they're feeling quite anxious. And actually there are lots of benefits to doing group therapy. If you think about it, it's kind of a trial run for real life. We all need to be in settings with others, work, home life, etc. And there are times that we need to manage in social situations. But group therapy can be a really good starting point. It can be scary, it can be overwhelming, but sometimes it can be good for us. But what I would say is, if you are having these feelings, call us and let us know. We need to know where you're at, because it might be that there could be something that we could do to support you. I remember I met a lady who said that she didn't like going to the groups because the lights in the building were really upsetting her and upsetting her eyes. But then when we knew that, we then dimmed the lighting and everyone else was okay with that. So perhaps there's something that we can do within the group to change how it feels for you. And then going forward, it can feel a little bit easier. So please let us know and we can support you. In terms of a particular OCD, that would be something that you could discuss with the therapist who got in touch with you. So I would say to that individual, please do get in touch with us to discuss more.
Thank you, Laura. Further question. I'm anxious about my weight and this is affecting my mental health. It's like a vicious cycle, as the anxiety leads me to comfort eat and then I get upset because I can't lose weight. Alex, I think there might be some groups that you signpost to for this. Is that right?
Sorry, Emma, could you repeat the question for me, please?
I'm anxious about my weight and this is affecting my mental health. It's like a vicious cycle, as the anxiety leads me to comfort eat and then I get upset because I can't lose weight. And I thought that there might be some community groups that Community Connect signposts to. Yeah,
definitely. I think it's quite a normal reaction. Whoever put that question in the chat, it can be a cycle which goes round and you kind of feel like you're not really getting anywhere. So we do try to connect you to an exercise or to a group that's really going to suit you. And how Laura was saying before, if something's not working for you, it might be in the past that you've tried certain things and that's not quite worked out. So we'll try to actually listen to what you have liked in the past, and you know, for one person they might like jogging and the other person might think that's terrible and want to you know, just go out for a walk. There's Nordic walking, for example, and they meet up, and I think it will be again a case by case scenario, especially at the moment with COVID, but as the restrictions are easing. And there are also some Zoom classes which are going on from carer support, for example. I know MenCap also do some exercise classes online, so definitely get in touch and we'll be able to put you in touch with organisations which can support you with that.
Thank you, Alex. The next question is for someone who's having some difficulties at work. Are there any resources to help manage our anxiety at work? So, for example, my anxiety makes me withdraw, and some people perceive this as sulking or that I'm angry. I don't want to have to explain myself all the time, but neither do I want to be seen this way. What techniques are there for me?
I would really say to one, have a look on the National Mind website. There's lots of information about mental health in the workplace. Another thing which might be really good is to see if you can get your team and yourselves to go on mental health first aid. It's a course that we offer at Mind, and it's a really, really good course that goes into lots of different mental health and how we struggle and how we all cope in very different ways. And it can teach us how not only how to support ourselves, but also how to support others and work with different colleagues. And perhaps it's just saying to your colleagues, look, when I act a certain way, I just want to be left, and it doesn't mean I'm upset with anyone. It's just that this is how I need to be for a little bit, and maybe it's just about having that open communication, saying this is what I want from you, and maybe this is about them saying this is what I need from you. So it's just about having that open communication. You know, sometimes when I'm anxious, I go quiet. It doesn't mean that I don't want to talk. I'm just feeling quite anxious. So, you know, sometimes it's good to let people know that.
Thank you, Laura. Next, we have a participant who just wanted to share a symptom that she had while she was feeling anxious, just to raise awareness. Dr. Shah is going to cover this.
Yes, so when we talked about the physical symptoms of anxiety and depression, I said, look, this is just an example of some of them. So somebody's very kindly shared what happened to them and wanted to share it with everybody, just so people can see some of the things that can happen. And she said, 2 months ago, my anxiety was becoming a problem. At the same time, my eyesight started to deteriorate. My vision was flickery and blurred, and I couldn't go out in the daylight without sunglasses. You can only imagine the increased anxiety this was causing. Yeah, and I think we did say the physical symptoms can make you more anxious, and it's a vicious circle. So I thought I was losing my sight. After 1 week of taking anti-anxiety tablets, citalopram, I felt so much better. Strangely enough, my eyesight has returned to normal, and I've spoken to a medical contact, and these symptoms were all caused by extreme anxiety. My pupils were fixed and dilated due to anxiety, and they were flickering due to increased blood pressure. So thank you for sharing that, and I think that's a good example of just one of the many different ways in which anxiety can affect us physically.
Thank you, Dr. Shah. The next question is about the Crisis Cafe, a two-part question. So the first is, what if your mental health or your anxiety stops you from actually being able to physically attend the Crisis Cafe? Is there an alternative, such as a phone line or something? And then also they just wanted to know what the experience is like when they attend the Crisis Cafe, please, Laura.
No problem. So first I will go to the experience of the Crisis Cafe. So you would come up to the Mind of Bexley office, and so if you've been to the Mind of Bexley office before, it's quite a glass building. You will ring the doorbell, and then somebody from the team will let you in. All you will do is sign in. Because of COVID right now, they will take your temperature at a distance, of course. And then what happens is they'll lead you into our group room, where you will speak to somebody one-on-one for however long you need about what's going on for you. And that's it. You will literally speak about what's going on for you, and they will make suggestions, they'll reassure you, and they might say, you know, have you thought about doing this at our service? And they might make suggestions, and then you can come away from that. In terms of other support out there. Obviously, we are a service that is open out of hours. So if you wasn't able to attend, there is the Samaritans. I think Jatinder mentioned Counselling Matters as well. So there are other helplines out there during that time that you can access if you aren't able to come and see us face to face.
Next question is about sleep. I'm finding it really hard to sleep, and I still take my medication. I'm not sure whether that's for depression and anxiety or whether it's sleep medication. What can I do to keep my mind at peace so that I can sleep?
So I would say what I found really helpful is writing things down before you go to bed, trying to get all of your thoughts out. Make a bit of a plan. If you're thinking about lots of things that are coming up or upcoming, you know, I always write what I'm thinking about and my solution. So if I'm thinking about making lunch, okay, I'm going to get up a bit earlier to make lunch. You know, it's just trying to find solutions. If you feel that your mind is racing, that is an indication that you're not quite ready to go to sleep yet. It's like your body's tired, but your mind isn't. And it's about trying to get your mind into a tired state. So it might be that you are listening to calming music. It might be you go for a quick walk. It might be that you sit there in complete silence and wait until your brain is calming down. But have a look at the sleep resources that I will send out, and fingers crossed the one will work for you. But what I would tend to say as well is try one for a week, see how it goes, and then if that doesn't work, move on to another one, because sometimes we try something once and we just don't ever do it again, when actually that could be the one that could help you. Coping strategies and things we implement sometimes can take time to take effect, so hopefully that's of help.
Thank you so much. Next question. Is it possible to access some of the activities mentioned by Laura and run by the Recovery College, even if you're not waiting for treatment? For example, they particularly like the sound of the guided mindfulness sessions, stress, anxiety, or yoga, that sort of thing?
Yeah, of course. So when we are talking about IAPT and then when we're talking about Recovery College, they're different services. So you can all go onto the Mind of Bexley website this evening, go to the Recovery College page, you will find that timetable, and then it will just ask you to complete the form. And then what will happen is we'll receive what groups you'd like to go to, and then we will just email you the Zoom link. So anyone can attend. You know, you don't even have to be struggling with your mental health. You might just want to come and do these things. And the aim of the Recovery College and the workshops is to help you improve your well-being, but also to help with isolation right now. We've got lots of groups. We've got a Mend, Make and Motivate group. We've got a creative writing group. We've got a women's group, men's group. We've got lots of puzzle game groups. So we're trying to not only help you in your well-being and your mental health, but we're trying to support you if you're feeling quite isolated right now. So yeah, please sign up.
Got a question specifically asking about how to deal with the symptoms of stress and feeling irritable when you're...
So number one, I'd say count to 10. So it's going back to not reacting. It's about waiting and thinking about our thoughts and feelings before we do react, because often what we do, we're very reactive. You know, our stress bucket has reached the absolute top and we're overflowing. And that's called something emotional snapping, where we are agitating, we're shouting. And then what you tend to find is we feel really guilty and we feel upset afterwards. So it doesn't really help. So sometimes it literally is about counting to 10 and saying to yourself, I'm feeling really overwhelmed at the moment. I'm really agitated. I literally need a break. It might be focusing on your breathing that you might find really helpful. Some people find tapping or doing something with their hands can be really helpful. So sometimes people might play with things. You know, if you've got anything with you, some people might find just distraction. You might play a game with yourself, the grounded techniques I talked about earlier. You know, think of 3 things in this room that are red, what's green, and just distracting yourself for a moment, because when we are agitated, there's already that feeling of anger anyway. And sometimes when we react, we just then exacerbate how we're feeling again. So it is about taking that step back sometimes and taking that deep breath.
Thank you, Laura. And just to feedback, we're getting lots of feedback about Mind and about how helpful the services have been, not just the counselling services, but also some of the other things you mentioned through the Recovery College, such as the women's group, and someone who particularly found Mind helpful when they're in a place of crisis. So,
oh, that's amazing. Thank you. Love feedback.
So I think we've managed to answer all of the questions in the chat box currently. Just another post coming through, someone who wanted to share their experience with depression that they battled with since childhood, and it manifested with physical symptoms where they had a non-organic stroke. They're getting lots of support now from St Thomas's, and they wanted to really help people to understand the importance of getting help and support as soon as possible, because having mental health problems is nothing to be ashamed of. They wanted to praise the surgery and a doctor in particular that they got help from. So they're saying they're really very much on the road to recovery. They're in the best place that they've been in for a long time. And I think that would be a fantastic place to end, just to really echo the reasoning around putting the webinar together, just to help people to understand the importance of getting help as soon as possible. I think that really echoes what we've tried to achieve tonight. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to all of our speakers, to Dr. Samina Shah, to Laura Burke, to Alex Fordham, also a thank you to Jatinder Rai of Community Connect, and to David Blows of South East London CCG IT Department for all of your help with this event. Thank you to you, the audience, for joining us tonight and for all of your questions and for your encouragement. I really hope that you found the webinar helpful and would encourage you to contact us at the surgery if you're struggling, and also to make use of the resources that were mentioned here tonight if they appeal to you. It would really help us to improve the service that we offer you if you could please leave some comments in the comment box regarding the webinar. I'm really sorry to anybody that had any IT problems initially when they were trying to log on. So as we mentioned before, we will try to post this webinar to the Albion Surgery website. We will be emailing out some of the self-help resources that Laura mentioned, and also a list of some of the organisations that Community Connect signpost to. So thanks again, everybody, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.